Good evening, everyone. I'm Leah Cooper with your JCN News for this Wednesday, August 28th. PLP members, supporters, friends, and family gathered at the Court of Appeal this morning to hear the results of an appeal against former PLP Cabinet Minister Frank Smith. With the decision, we go to our Ariel Bowleg.
The highest court in the land this morning dismisses an appeal to set aside the judgment of acquittal on the no case to answer submission for former PLP Senator Frank Smith extortion and bribery case. The grounds of appeal were that the learned magistrate took extraneous matter into consideration, evidence was wrongly rejected, or inadmissible evidence was wrongly admitted by the magistrate, and that in the latter case there wasn't sufficient evidence to sustain that decision. The appellant also argued that the decision was unreasonable and could not be supported having regard to evidence. It was also said that the decision was erroneous in point of law and that the decision of a learned magistrate was based on wrong principle or was such that the magistrate viewing the circumstances reasonably could not have properly decided. Lastly, the appellant argued that some material illegality or irregularity other than previously mentioned, substantially affecting the merits of the case, was committed in the course or proceedings therein or in the decision. Delivering the decision was Madam Justice Crane Scott, who says the court satisfied that Chief Magistrate Joanne Ferguson Pratt made no mistakes regarding key witness Barbara Hanna's reliability as a witness, determining whether the prosecution's evidence disclosed a prima facie case, bearing in mind that the only evidence incriminating the respondent originated from Mrs. Hanna. Therefore, she says, the appeal is unsustainable and accordingly is dismissed. Prosecutor Neil Burtwright then asked for a date from the court to appeal to the Privy Council, which was subsequently rejected. In fact, Madam Justice Scott described the request as unusual. Speaking to reporters outside of the Court of Appeal, a relieved Frank Smith says this.
I want to thank the framers of our Constitution that put enshrined for us this system of checks and balances that would allow us to reach and arrive at this day where justice was done and also seen to be done.
Mr. Smith was represented this morning by Queen Counsel Damian Gomez and Mr. Philip McKenzie. His team was led by Jamaican Queen's Counsel Keith Knight. For JCN, I'm Ariel Bowleg.
Opposition leader Philip Davis also chiming in off the heels of that appeal dismissal, adding that this vindicates the rule of law, giving a vote of confidence in the judiciary.
Where we don't have a judiciary that is courageous and brave in face of pressures that comes from the political directorate, we will have anarchy and we'll have what we call a state of oppression.
In a statement released this morning, Mr. Davis says he hopes that the Crown will now leave the matter alone and won't waste any precious public resources in this judicial folly by appealing to the Privy Council. In fact, here's his response to prosecutors' request for a date to appeal to the Privy Council.
The fact that the representative, the Attorney General, or the DPP can get up in the face of the court, of course, to be spanked by the court, to say that they want a date for an application for leave to appeal to the Privy Council. That in itself is pure politics. And as the lawyer was reminded, it was very inappropriate for him to have said that at that time. And it is inappropriate. In fact, it's questionable whether or not the Court of Appeal has the jurisdiction to grant leave to appeal in matters of this nature. And the process, as I recall, is that you have to go direct to the Privy Council to seek special leave to appeal.
The PLP leader asks all party supporters and all friends of the progressive cause to stand firm and be resolute, as truth will prevail and no lie last forever. Tropical storm Dorian's making a turn towards northwest Bahamas after just missing the southern islands. The Department of Meteorology have been tracking the storm's path and says that the storm will affect mostly North Eleuthera, Abaco, and Grand Bahama. Just this morning, the alert for southeast Bahamas was discontinued. Senior Deputy Director of Meteorology Department Jeffrey Simmons says the storm will make landfall on Thursday.
It is expected that Dorian would intensify and also expand in terms of size. But right now it's a rather compact storm, and it's still a tropical storm because over the past few days it was actually passing through some hostile environment. But now as it moved past Puerto Rico, which we expect to happen tonight, Dorian will now enter into more favorable environment. There will be open waters out in the ocean. Waters are there warm, conditions are favorable, so we expect Dorian to actually become a hurricane within the next 2 or 3 days. And so as Dorian passes parallel to the islands, yes, we do expect some shell activities and some winds, and also for boaters, some swells.
Now, by this weekend, the storm may become a Category 1 or 2 hurricane. Quite naturally, NEMA Director Captain Stephen Russell urging Bahamians to be prepared not only for the upcoming storm, but the remaining 100 days of the hurricane season.
That's why he was saying the people should be resilient. You know a storm is coming, you have 3 or 4 days notice that a storm is approaching. You know what is required to secure your home, your property, your business, your assets. That's why we stress for persons to be prepared.
Captain Russell identified key areas of the islands that the storm is anticipated to affect that he says are vulnerable. These include the Glass Window Bridge, Sweetings Key, East Grand Bahama, and Sandy Point in Abaco. In between Acklands and Ragged Island, Captain Russell says boaters and people working near Samana Key should be aware of Dorian's movement. The Bahamas government has spent nearly $821 million in the last 5 years due to 3 major hurricanes. You're watching JCN News. Stay with us.
This segment of the news was brought to you by Alive.